Is drinking too much making your life worse? And even when you decide to stop drinking, you find it almost impossible, and you start drinking again soon after you said you're gonna stop drinking. And then you wonder, why is that? Why am I drinking if I said I was not going to drink? Well, I wondered the same thing over and over again. And I reached a point in my life where things were spiraling out of control, and I saw the writing on the wall. Then I learned this key insight that helped me to understand why was I drinking so much, and it helped me to stay sober and stop drinking for good. Hi, this is Alex Rivera with Activation Energy, and I'm here to help you stay sober, reclaim your life, and become a better version of yourself. So things were not going well for me. I was drinking way too much, and I was drinking when I was feeling stressed out, but I was also drinking when I was feeling happy. I was drinking when I was feeling upset, when I was feeling like celebrating something, when I was bored. I was just drinking all the time, and drinking had become my go-to activities for a lot of these things in my life that I was dealing with. Even though I was not drinking every day, I would go into these binges and I would drink for days in a row. I would call into work and say I was sick, so I would get this mysterious sickness periodically, after a binge. I was out of commission for 3-4 days. The relationship with my family suffered quite a bit too, because my wife would find me in the middle of the night drinking, and this would upset her tremendously, and then we would argue about it. And this created a lot of tension and stress in the relationship with my wife. Towards the end of my drinking days, my behavior was increasingly irrational and stupid. And I was drinking at odd times of the day, and I was lying about my drinking and hiding and feeling really bad about how I was behaving. I was drinking and driving. And this really, really shook me, because I was going to not only hurt myself or kill myself, but there was the possibility of harming some innocent person. So I needed help, but I was not asking for it. So I signed up for an IOP program, which stands for an Intensive Outpatient Program. In this IOP program, I learned a lot of techniques and skills that helped me to stay sober, that helped me to understand what was going on within me, and where I could learn from others, because in the IOP program, there was other people in a similar situation than me, and we were able to learn from each other's experience. So if you have an option to do this, I would highly recommend it. However, I will share with you the key insight that I learned during my time at the IOP that changed the way I approach alcohol and changed the way I approached the way I was living my life until that point. If you're feeling anxious, you might try to do things that calm you down. And some of these activities might be good. You might watch some TV or play favorite music, but some of these other activities might not be good for you, like drinking or doing drugs or gambling or doing things that in the long term will harm you. So there is a connection between our emotions and our actions, right? And this probably is not surprising for you. You're probably aware that you act upon these emotions. We do things because we feel a certain way. So if we're feeling upset, if we're feeling happy, if we're feeling sad, if we're feeling angry, we act accordingly. Well, there's a missing piece in this understanding, and that is the connection between your emotions and your thoughts. Because you might feel justified in your anger, or you might feel justified in your sadness because something really bad happened to you. There's no emotion without interpretation. It means that you have to make a judgment of whether something is good or bad, terrible or mild. And the same thing can happen to two different people, and the interpretation of that event will be very different. So if you get fired, It could be that you feel like that is the end of the world for you and that things are going to be terrible and you're going to end up living in squalor in a ditch somewhere. Or you might feel like, you know what, this is a setback and I have been able to solve a lot of difficult things in my life. So chances are is that I'm going to be able to find a solution, right? It's the same type of activating event, but the way you are interpreting is different. And that creates a different type of emotion within you. All right. A classic example is the issue of road rage, right? When somebody cuts you off in traffic. Why do some people end up feeling like so angry that they want to commit acts of violence against that person? I mean, you don't know anything about that person on why that person cut you off. It might be that that person legitimately didn't see you, or maybe they're having a medical issue, or the coffee fell on their lap or something like that. You don't know. But some people might enter into this rage, and that's because the way they think about what happened. So studies say that we have between 50 and 70,000 thoughts every day. And I'm not sure how they count that, but I'm going to go with that. That means that we have thousands of thoughts every day, and some of them are just mundane and just things that we observe, things that pop in our minds in and out. But some of them can be bizarre, and some of them can be very strange. Some of them might make us feel good, some of these thoughts might make us feel bad, and some of these thoughts might actually provoke a very, very strong anxiety response in us. But remember, these are thoughts. These are interpretations of reality. These are not reality themselves, because there isn't anything that is actually real. Reality is what we make of it. Okay, and I'm not trying to go into some kind of mystical interpretation of reality here. All I'm trying to say is there are facts, there are things that happen out there in the world, and then it's how we process it and how we interpret it in our minds. Okay, so there is a very clear distinction there. So, having said all of this, understanding the connection between your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors is the key to learning to not drink in a way that's going to harm you. If you're drinking so much that is harming your life and your family and all of these other things that you hold dear, is because you're trying to relieve a very, very strong emotion. And that could be anger, that could be anxiety, that could be depression. You're trying to deal with this very strong emotion in what some clinicians call maladaptive way. That means you're trying to cope with these emotions, you're trying to find relief by drinking or by doing drugs or by engaging in risky behaviors that might bring you some temporary relief, but that will harm you in the long term. So learning the connection between your thoughts and your feelings, and then change your behaviors is key. Because by understanding this, then you're able to short circuit and disrupt this chain of events. Because it's not like you just find yourself drinking all of a sudden out of the blue. Something happens before you start drinking, right? There's usually some kind of activating event, something that happened out there in the world that triggers you, that makes you want to drink. First, it makes you feel something. You have a very, very strong emotion, and perhaps you don't want to feel this emotion. In the case of sadness or anxiety, you just don't want to deal with this emotion, so you use alcohol or drugs in order to calm it down, in order to quell it, okay? But what if you did not have to feel such a strong emotion? What if you could do something about the thought that's behind that very strong emotion? What if you could look and analyze what is it that's making me feel this way, and then figuring it out and finding out, well, does that make sense? Can I challenge the assumption that is making me feel angry or sad or anxious, right? So your boss is after you because you got to finish some work, and he is just all over you, and that makes you feel very anxious. What's really making you feel anxious, if you think about it, is what you think the consequences are for not doing the work. So maybe you feel like if you don't do the work, well, he's gonna fire you. And if he's gonna fire you, then you're not gonna have any money. If you don't have any money, you can't pay the bills, you can't pay the rent. And then you're gonna get evicted and you're gonna be very poor and it's gonna be really bad for your family. But stop right there, because you have to look at this series of thoughts and challenge them, because some of these thoughts might just be way too out there. They are what you call catastrophic, and you might be thinking in a way that is not realistic. So looking at the thoughts behind the strong emotions is extremely important to change the way you feel. So this is a practice. Next time you have a very strong emotion, stay with that emotion. Don't do anything about it. Don't move into the action. Don't try to do anything to calm it down. And instead, challenge the thought behind that emotion. Pause and think about, why am I feeling this way? And figure out whether the reasons are valid or not valid. Challenge the assumptions, challenge the thought behind the feeling. Are people really making fun of you? Are you really a loser? Have you lost at everything you do in life? Do you think you're worthless because you don't do anything right? But is that true? Have you failed at everything you've done in life? I don't think so. You see, because a lot of these feelings are very black and white, are very binary, yes or no. And we tend to put ourselves down and think that we do things wrong all the time, but that is not true. So think about, what are these ideas that are making you feel so strongly, and then that you now are using alcohol or drugs or other maladaptive behaviors to cope with, and start practicing challenging those thoughts, because this is the key. When you start challenging these thoughts and make it a practice, your strong emotions will go down to a more normal level, to a more manageable level. See, because your emotions are all over the place. They are like a volcano that is erupting, and it's very hard to deal and cope with these emotions. But if you were able to bring these emotions down to a more normal, rational, and realistic level, then you wouldn't feel such a strong need to drink or do drugs. Please tell me if this makes sense to you, and leave me a comment, because I want to know. This was so important to me. This was such an important realization that has helped me to stay sober for many, many years now. Because it's not that I don't feel strong emotions these days, but every time I feel a strong emotion, I am able to pause and think about the thoughts and my assumptions behind those strong feelings. And more often than not, I find that there is a flaw in the thinking. There is a distortion in the way I'm thinking about a certain thing, and that's why I'm feeling so strongly about it. While you learn how to challenge your assumptions and your thoughts, you're still going to have to deal with the inevitable cravings and urges to drink if you've been drinking for a very long time. So check out this video I made on how to deal with urges in early sobriety. And if you are new to sobriety, check out the 5-day sobriety plan that I came up with. It's a step-by-step how-to for the first few days that will help you to maximize your chances to stay sober in that first critical week of sobriety. This is Alex Rivera, and please subscribe to our channel and share with people who you might think will enjoy this content. And I hope you enjoyed this, because this was such an important realization for me, and I think it will help you as well. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.